Commander Jake stood at the observation window of the United Defense Command Center in New York City. Above Earth's atmosphere, 500 warships hung in perfect formation. They were not human ships. The Empire had arrived. Jake was 42 years old, a veteran of the Mars colony's conflict, and one of Earth's top military strategists. He had spent 20 years preparing for this moment, though he had always hoped it would never come. The ships above were each 10 times larger than humanity's biggest vessels. Their weapons could turn cities to glass in seconds. The Empire ruled 200 star systems and had never lost a war in 3,000 years. "They're hailing us again," said Dr. Amy from her station. She was the strategic analyst who had been tracking alien movements for the past decade. Her hands shook slightly as she worked the communications panel. "Put them through," Ambassador Lisa said. She was Earth's chief diplomat, a woman who had negotiated peace between warring nations and brokered the unification of Earth's governments after first contact with alien life. But nothing in her career had prepared her for this. The screen flickered. High Executor Eth appeared. He was massive, nearly 8 feet tall, with 4 arms and skin like polished obsidian. His species had conquered the galaxy through overwhelming force and absolute cruelty. Behind him, Jake could see rows of soldiers standing at attention. "Humans," Eth's voice was surprisingly smooth, translated by computer systems. "The Empire has claimed this sector. Your system now belongs to the Emperor. You have 72 hours to surrender your governments and military forces. Comply, and your population will be absorbed into the Empire as workers. Resist, and we will exterminate every living thing on your planet." Lisa stepped forward, her face calm despite the terror Jake knew she felt. "High Executor, Earth is an independent world. We have broken no galactic laws. We seek peaceful coexistence with all species." Eth laughed. The sound made Jake's blood run cold. "Peace exists only through submission. The strong rule, the weak serve. This is the natural order. Your species is young, primitive. You should be grateful the Empire will allow you to live as servants rather than destroy you entirely." "We will not become slaves," Lisa said quietly. "Give us time to discuss terms of mutual cooperation." "There are no terms," Eth replied. "There is only obedience or death. 72 hours, humans, choose wisely." The screen went dark. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then Captain Foster broke the silence. He commanded Earth's largest space carrier, the Independence, and his voice was steady despite the impossible odds. "How many ships can we field against them?" 43 combat vessels, Jake answered. "Another 100 support ships, against 500 warships equipped with technology centuries beyond ours." "So we're looking at total annihilation if we fight," said Lieutenant Parker. She was one of Earth's best fighter pilots, only 28 years old, but she had already earned 3 medals for valor during patrol actions against pirates. "Yes," Jake said simply. "If we fight conventionally, they'll destroy us in hours." "Then we don't fight conventionally," Amy said. She pulled up a holographic display. "For 10 years since first contact, we've been preparing, not just building ships, but developing tactics. They've fought hundreds of wars, but they've never fought humans before." Jake nodded. "They expect us to either surrender or meet them in direct combat. We'll do neither." Lisa looked at the strategic plans appearing on the displays around them. "The other governments are convening now. Russia, China, the European Union, everyone. For the first time in history, every nation on Earth must make the same choice together." Over the next 72 hours, Jake barely slept. He coordinated with military commanders across the planet. General Dawson, the Supreme Military Commander, authorized activation of every defense network humanity had built in secret. Hidden weapons platforms in the asteroid belt came online. Mines were scattered throughout the orbital approaches to Earth. Fighter squadrons prepared for launch from bases on the Moon and Mars. The civilian population was evacuated from major cities to underground shelters. Families said goodbye, not knowing if they would see each other again. Children were put on transports heading to deep bunkers. Parents stayed behind to fight or support the war effort. Jake watched the news feeds. In Beijing, millions of people filled the streets in defiance. In London, volunteers lined up to join defense forces. In Lagos, engineers worked around the clock to modify civilian ships into weapons. Factory workers increased production of ammunition and missiles. Humanity had never been truly united before, but facing extinction changed everything. On the third day, Lisa addressed the fleet. Every screen on Earth showed her face. Jake stood beside her, along with General Dawson and representatives from every nation. High Executor Eth, Lisa began, Earth has reached its decision. We have consulted with all our governments, our military leaders, and our people. We speak with one voice. Jake saw Eth's face on the screen, confident and amused. The alien clearly expected surrender. Humanity refuses your ultimatum, Lisa said clearly. We will not submit to slavery. We will not bow to tyrants. If you want Earth, you will have to take it from our dead hands. Every man, woman, and child on this planet has voted. The result was unanimous. We choose freedom, even if freedom costs us everything. Eth's amusement vanished. You are fools, you choose extinction. We choose to remain human, Jake said, stepping forward. Your empire has conquered 200 worlds because they surrendered or were too weak to resist. But you've never faced a species that would rather die than kneel. You're about to learn what happens when you threaten humanity's home. Then you will die, Eth snarled. I will personally stand on the ashes of your cities. Come and try, Jake replied. The screen went dark. Across Earth, alarm sirens began to wail. The fleet was moving into attack position. Jake looked at his team. Amy was pulling up tactical displays, was contacting fleet commanders, was running toward the fighter hangars. Lisa was already coordinating with civilian authorities to complete evacuations. All forces, this is Commander, Jake spoke into the global military channel. They expect an easy victory. They think we're primitives who will break at the first sign of real combat. They're wrong. We've trained for this. We've prepared for this. We may not have their technology, but we have something they've never encountered before. We have the human spirit. We have ingenuity. We have the absolute refusal to accept defeat. Today, we show the galaxy what humanity is made of. The first fighters entered Earth's atmosphere over the Pacific Ocean. High Executor Eth watched from his flagship, expecting to see human cities burning within minutes. Instead, the ocean itself seemed to explode. Hidden beneath the waves, humanity had placed thousands of missile platforms. They erupted from the water in coordinated volleys, tracking the incoming fighters with deadly precision. The pilots barely had time to register the threat before their ships were torn apart by the barrage. What is this? Eth demanded. His tactical officer was frantically updating the display. 60 fighters destroyed in the first 10 seconds. They have defensive weapons we did not detect, High Executor, the officer reported. Our scans showed only primitive satellites. Impossible, advance the main fleet. On Earth, Commander Jake watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction. They fell for it. All orbital defense platforms fire now. What they had thought were communications satellites suddenly revealed their true nature. Weapons platforms that had been disguised and silent for years activated simultaneously. Particle beams and rounds struck the capital ships from every direction. Lieutenant Parker was already in her fighter, launching from the lunar base along with 300 other pilots. They had superior ships, but human pilots had something the Empire had never encountered. They had trained in atmosphere, in space, in asteroid fields. They knew how to improvise, how to think creatively under pressure. Break formation, ordered her squadron. Don't give them predictable targets, use the debris field. They fought in rigid formations, following doctrine that had worked for 3,000 years. Human pilots scattered like insects, impossible to target effectively. They flew in ways that violated every standard tactical manual, using maneuvers that should have been suicide but somehow worked. Led her fighters straight into a cloud of debris from destroyed ships. The enemy targeting systems lost track in the chaos. When she emerged, she was behind a cruiser. Her missiles struck its engines, sending the massive ship spinning out of control. General Dawson coordinated the ground defenses from command centers deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. He had been a soldier for 40 years, fighting in conflicts across Earth. Now he faced an enemy from the stars, but the principles of warfare remained the same. Know your enemy's weaknesses, use the terrain, never fight fair. Launch the drone swarms, he ordered. Thousands of small drones, each barely larger than a dinner plate, lifted from hidden facilities across the planet. The sensors dismissed them as insignificant. That was their mistake. Each drone carried a shaped explosive charge designed to penetrate starship hulls. They moved in coordinated swarms like schools of fish, overwhelming the point defense systems through sheer numbers. A destroyer tried to shoot down the swarm approaching it. For every drone it destroyed, 10 more got through. The little machines attached to the hull and detonated simultaneously. The destroyer's shields flickered and died. Atmosphere vented from dozens of breaches. Captain Foster commanded the Independence from its position behind the moon. His orders were clear. Wait for the right moment, then strike hard and fast. He watched the battle unfold, noting how the fleet was positioning itself. "They're moving into bombardment formation," his tactical officer reported. "They'll start hitting cities within 5 minutes." "Not if we hit them first," said. "All ships maximum acceleration, target their command cruiser." The Earth fleet had been hiding in the moon's shadow, powered down, invisible to sensors. Now they burst into view at full thrust, launching every missile they had. They had expected the human fleet to defend Earth's orbit. They did not expect a concentrated assault on their flagship's position. High Executor Eth's ship shuddered as human weapons struck its shields. "Impossible! How did they get behind us?" "They used the moon to mask their approach, High Executor." Eth's confidence was cracking. His fleet had already lost more ships in 1 hour than in the last 50 years of conquest. These humans were not fighting like primitives. They were fighting like cornered animals, using every trick and tactic they could devise. Engineer Torres worked in a laboratory beneath the Nevada desert. While the battle raged above, he was preparing humanity's most desperate weapon. The shields could stop conventional weapons, but his team had developed something new. An electromagnetic pulse bomb that could overload shield generators if delivered close enough. "It's ready," reported to the command center. "But someone has to deliver it manually, though we'll shoot down any unmanned drone before it gets close." "Then we use a manned ship," his voice came over the channel. She had been listening on the tactical net. "I'll do it." "Lieutenant, that's a suicide run," Jake said. "I know, sir, but if I don't, they'll destroy Earth. Give me the coordinates." Jake closed his eyes briefly. He had sent soldiers to their deaths before, but it never got easier. "Coordinates uploaded. Good luck, Lieutenant." Broke away from her squadron, her fighter carrying the prototype weapon in its cargo bay. She pushed her engines to maximum, streaking toward the flagship. Enemy fire filled the space around her. Her shields took hit after hit, burning away energy with each impact. "Almost there," she whispered to herself. Her cockpit was filling with smoke. Warning alarms screamed. Her shield generator exploded, leaving her completely exposed. One more hit would kill her. But she was close enough. Armed the weapon and launched it directly at the flagship's shield emitter. Then she ejected, her escape pod blasting away as her fighter disintegrated under fire. The electromagnetic pulse detonated against the flagship's shields. The energy cascade was spectacular. The shield generators overloaded one by one, creating a chain reaction. For 30 seconds, the massive flagship was completely vulnerable. "All ships target the flagship now," shouted. Every human ship and weapons platform that could fire did so. Missiles, rounds, particle beams, everything humanity had struck the unshielded flagship simultaneously. The mighty vessel, which had led the conquest of 100 worlds, broke apart under the barrage. High Executor Eth died without understanding how his perfect plan had failed. His last thought was disbelief that primitives had destroyed him. The loss of their flagship sent chaos through the fleet. Human forces pressed their advantage mercilessly. Dr. Amy had studied every battle in their recorded history. She knew their doctrine, their tactics, their responses to every situation. But she also knew their weakness. "They've never faced an enemy that adapts this quickly," Amy explained to Jake. "Every battle they've ever fought followed predictable patterns. We're not following any pattern. We're changing tactics every few minutes. Their command structure can't handle it." Jake nodded. "Keep them off balance. Lieutenant Parker is down but alive. Her escape pod was recovered. We need more pilots willing to make runs like that." Across every communication channel, volunteers responded. Pilots who had been held in reserve launched from bases on Mars, from the asteroid belt, from orbital stations. Each one knew they might not return, but none hesitated. The battle raged for 18 hours. They kept expecting human forces to break, to surrender once casualties mounted. But humanity had made its choice. Every destroyed ship was replaced by 3 more. Every fallen pilot was avenged by their squadron. As dawn broke over New York City, Jake looked at the tactical display. The fleet was pulling back, regrouping. They had lost 47 ships. Earth had lost 22. The casualty rate was terrible, but humanity was still fighting. The Empire's response was brutal. After the shocking losses from the first battle, they sent reinforcements. 300 more warships arrived in Earth system, led by War Marshal, or a commander known for destroying rebellious worlds completely. Commander Jake watched the new fleet approach. His victory felt hollow now. Earth had won the first battle, but at terrible cost. 22 ships destroyed meant thousands of dead sailors. Cities had been damaged by debris from space battles. Millions of civilians huddled in underground shelters, afraid to return home. "They're not coming to negotiate," General Dawson said grimly. "They're coming to make an example of us." The new commander made no speeches or demands. He simply opened fire. Orbital bombardment began along the eastern coast of North America. New York, already partially evacuated, took direct hits. The United Defense Command Center shook as nearby buildings collapsed. "We need to relocate," Amy said, grabbing her data terminals. "They've found our position." Jake coordinated the evacuation as the command center fell apart around them. They fled through underground tunnels to backup facilities beneath the Appalachian Mountains. Behind them, the city he had defended was turning to rubble and fire. Captain Hayes commanded Orbital Station Freedom, one of Earth's largest military installations. She watched in horror as ships moved into close orbit and began systematic bombardment of Earth's cities. Tokyo, Mumbai, Lagos, one by one, population centers took devastating hits. "We have to stop them," her weapons officer said. "We're one station against 300 ships," replied. "But we'll do what we can. All weapons fire at will." Freedoms opened up, targeting the nearest ships. They destroyed 2 cruisers before the enemy responded. Missile volleys converged on the station from multiple directions. Shields held for 30 seconds before failing. "All hands abandon station," she ordered. "Get to the escape pods now." The station's crew ran for their lives as sections exploded around them. Stayed at her post, manually firing the last weapons until the very end. When the main reactor went critical, she finally made for the escape pods. Her pod launched just as Freedom tore itself apart in a massive explosion. The debris from the station's death created a brief shield of metal fragments that confused targeting systems. It gave Earth's fleet precious seconds to reposition. Sacrifice had bought time, but the cost was devastating. On the ground, Lieutenant Chris led the 3rd Marine Division in South America. They had landed ground forces in Brazil, intending to establish a forward base. Chris and his Marines were tasked with stopping them. The enemy soldiers were massive, each one wearing armor that could deflect small arms fire. They moved in tight formations, overwhelming defenders with superior firepower. Chris watched his Marines die trying to hold the line against creatures twice their size and weight. "Fall back to the urban sectors," Chris ordered. "Make them fight us street by street." In the cities, human advantages became clear. They were used to open warfare. Urban combat, with its close quarters and ambush opportunities, confused them. Chris's Marines used every building, every alley, every sewer tunnel as a weapon. But the casualties mounted. For every soldier killed, 3 humans died. Chris received reports of entire platoons wiped out. Medical teams were overwhelmed. Ammunition was running low. Still, his Marines fought on, refusing to give ground. Dr. Shaw worked in a field hospital 50 miles from the front lines. The wounded came in waves: burns from energy weapons, crushed limbs from building collapses, radiation poisoning from bombs. She worked 18-hour shifts, trying to save as many as she could. A young Marine, barely 20 years old, was brought in with severe burns. Knew immediately he would not survive. She held his hand as he died, promising to tell his family he had been brave. He was the 47th soldier she had lost that day. "How many more?" she asked her assistant quietly. "The ambulances are still bringing them in, Doctor. Hundreds more." Returned to work, pushing aside her grief. There would be time to mourn later if humanity survived. Ambassador Lisa maintained communications with Earth's governments, coordinating the global defense. But the news was universally grim. Shanghai had fallen. Parts of Europe were under occupation. Africa was holding, but barely. South America was a war zone. "The casualties are approaching 10 million, her aide reported. Another 50 million displaced as refugees. Lisa felt the weight of every death. She had argued for defiance, for refusing the ultimatum. Now millions were paying the price for that choice. She wondered if she had been right or if submission would have saved lives. Ambassador, we're receiving reports from the occupied zones, her aide continued. They are executing civilians. Anyone who resists is killed immediately, along with their families. Lisa's doubt vanished. No, submission was never an option. The Empire did not offer mercy, only slavery or death. At least now, humanity was fighting for its dignity and freedom, not just survival. Jake received constant updates from the fronts. Every report was worse than the last. They were pushing human forces back on every theater. Space combat was stalemated, but ground forces were being overwhelmed. Civilian casualties were climbing exponentially. We're losing, General Dawson said bluntly. We bloodied their nose in the first battle, but they've adapted. They're not underestimating us anymore. Then we need to hit them harder, Jake replied. We still have resources they don't know about. The experimental weapons. Everything, we use it all now, or we won't get another chance. Captain Foster's fleet was reduced to 30 operational ships. He had watched dozens of vessels die, their crews vaporized or suffocating in space. But his surviving ships kept fighting, using hit-and-run tactics to harass the fleet. Sir, we've located their supply ships, his tactical officer reported. They're refueling behind the moon. Smiled grimly. Then let's cut off their supplies, all ships follow me. His fleet attacked the supply convoy, destroying fuel carriers and ammunition ships. The explosions were spectacular, but the victory felt small compared to Earth's losses. Still, every little advantage mattered. Back on Earth, children watched from shelter windows as the sky burned. Parents tried to shield them from the horror, but there was no hiding from war. Some cities had no shelters at all. Families died together as buildings collapsed. Yet humanity did not break. In occupied territories, resistance fighters emerged from hiding to ambush patrols. Civilians sabotaged enemy equipment. Old men and women who could not fight served as scouts and messengers. Everyone who could contribute did so. Jake stood before a holographic map showing the global situation. Red zones marked control. Yellow showed contested areas. Green represented secure human territory. There was far too much red and yellow, not enough green. We need a miracle, Amy said softly beside him. We need a plan, Jake corrected. They are winning through superior force. We need to make their strength irrelevant. How do we do that? Jake looked at the orbital display. The fleet was spread across Earth's orbit, bombarding selected targets while maintaining a blockade. They had the high ground and were using it to devastating effect. But they were also confident now, comfortable in their positions. We stopped defending, Jake said suddenly. We've been reacting to their moves. It's time we take the initiative. What are you proposing? A counteroffensive. Hit them everywhere at once. Make them defend instead of attack. Use every weapon we have left in one coordinated strike. That's incredibly risky. If it fails, we'll have nothing left. If we don't try, we've already lost. Jake began issuing orders. Call back every ship. Activate every hidden weapons platform. Mobilize every reserve unit. Prepare experimental weapons for deployment. Coordinate with resistance forces in occupied territories. The human forces had taken terrible losses. Millions dead, cities destroyed, fleets decimated. But they were still fighting. They had expected humanity to break under pressure. Instead, pressure was turning humans into something harder, fiercer, more determined. War Marshal or reviewed the battle reports with satisfaction. The primitives were losing. Their resistance was collapsing. Soon Earth would kneel, and the Empire's supremacy would be reaffirmed. He did not know that in bunkers across the planet, human engineers were preparing weapons that would change. Eve Commander Jake stood in the new command center, surrounded by holographic displays showing every human military asset. The counteroffensive would begin in 2 hours. Every commander, every soldier, every pilot knew this was humanity's last chance. If they failed, Earth would fall. All units report ready, General Dawson confirmed. Ground forces, naval fleets, air support, and special operations teams are in position. Jake activated the global command channel. His voice would be heard by every human fighter across Earth, the Moon, Mars, and the asteroid belt. This is Commander. For weeks we have been defending. We have been reacting. We have been losing. That ends now. Today we take the fight to the enemy. Today we show the Empire that humanity does not surrender. We do not break. We do not bow. Today we fight back with everything we have. All units execute Operation Firestorm. Across the planet, human forces erupted into action simultaneously. In space, Captain Foster led the combined Earth fleet in a direct assault on the blockade. His ships had been hidden in the asteroid belt, positioned for this exact moment. All ships maximum speed, target their formation center, break their line, ordered. The human fleet charged forward in a tight formation, concentrating their firepower on a single section of the blockade. Missiles, rounds, and energy weapons struck the same point over and over. The shields buckled under the concentrated assault. But this was only a distraction. While the fleet moved to counter-attack, Lieutenant Parker led a squadron of fighters on a different approach. She had recovered from her injuries and refused to stay grounded. Her squadron carried humanity's weapons. "Remember the target," said to her pilots. "Ignore everything else. We only get one shot at this." The fighters swept past the main battle, using the debris field as cover. Their target was the command ship, where War Marshal or coordinated the entire invasion fleet. The ship was heavily defended, but Squadron was not alone. From the moon's surface, hidden batteries opened fire. The rounds crossed the distance in seconds, striking the command ship's escorts. Explosions blossomed as cruisers died under the unexpected bombardment. "Now, now, now," shouted. Her squadron dove toward the command ship, releasing their weapons. Not missiles, but something else. Nuclear warheads modified with experimental fusion boosters. Each one carried destructive power equal to 50 conventional nuclear weapons. The point defense systems tried to intercept, but there were too many warheads coming too fast. 3 of them penetrated the command ship's shields and detonated against the hull. The explosions were small on a cosmic scale, but devastating to the ship. Armor plating vaporized. Internal compartments breached. The command ship's power systems failed. War Marshal was thrown from his command chair as the ship shuddered violently. "What is happening?" "Direct nuclear strike, War Marshal. The primitive weapons are tearing through our hull." "Impossible. Our shields should have stopped them." "They overloaded our defenses, sir. They concentrated all their force on us specifically." The command ship was dying and knew it. "Transfer command to the 3rd cruiser. All ships fall back and regroup." But the order came too late. The command ship's reactor went critical, and the massive vessel tore itself apart in a blinding explosion that lit up Earth's orbit like a second sun. On the ground, Sergeant Tyler Brooks led a Special Forces team through the ruins of. They had established a forward operating base in the city center, using it to coordinate ground operations across South America. Tyler's mission was simple: destroy it. His team of 12 soldiers moved through the rubble like ghosts. They had trained for urban warfare their entire careers. The soldiers were powerful, but they were not quiet, not careful. They assumed their superiority meant they did not need stealth. "Charges placed on the fuel depot," Tyler whispered into his radio. "Moving to the command center now." His team encountered a patrol of 4 soldiers. The aliens were 8 feet tall in their combat armor, carrying weapons that could punch through concrete. Tyler signaled his team. They had to take the patrol out silently or the whole base would be alerted. His sniper took the first shot, a high-powered round that punched through the patrol leader's armor at a weak joint. The alien went down. The other 3 spun around, trying to locate the threat. Tyler's team opened fire from 3 directions at once. Coordinated, precise shots targeting armor weaknesses. All 4 were dead in seconds. They reached the command center. Engineer Torres was with them, carrying a device he had built specifically for this mission. "This will work," said quietly. "They use quantum-encrypted communications. I built a virus that will corrupt their entire network if I can access their main server." "Then let's get you inside," Tyler said. They breached the facility using shaped charges. Soldiers rushed to respond, but Tyler's team had set up ambush positions. Concentrated fire cut down the defenders, reached the server room and connected his device. "Got it. The virus is uploading. 30 seconds and their entire communication network across South America goes dark." Those 30 seconds felt like forever. More soldiers were coming. Tyler's team held the entrance, firing controlled bursts, making every bullet count. One of his soldiers went down, killed by enemy fire. Then another. 20 seconds. Tyler threw his last grenade, buying precious time. "We need to move now." 10 seconds, almost there. A soldier broke through the line. Tyler tackled it, wrestling with the massive creature. It was stronger, but Tyler fought with desperate fury. His knife found a gap in the armor, drove deep. "Done, it's done," shouted. "All units fall back," Tyler ordered. His team ran through the facility toward the extraction point. Behind them, the charges they had planted detonated. The fuel depot exploded in a massive fireball that consumed the entire base. Across South America, forces suddenly lost all communication with their command structure. Confusion spread through their ranks. Lieutenant Chris' Marines, who had been fighting a desperate defense, immediately took advantage. They launched coordinated attacks on every isolated position, destroying enemy forces that could no longer coordinate or call for reinforcements. In space, the fleet was reeling from the loss of their command ship. Human forces pressed their advantage ruthlessly. Every hidden weapons platform activated, every ship launched every missile. Humanity was throwing everything into this one battle. General Dawson coordinated the global offensive from his command center. Reports flooded in. Victory in, enemy fleet in disarray, ground forces retreating in Africa and Asia, occupied territories rising in rebellion. "They're breaking," Amy said in disbelief. "They are actually breaking." "Keep the pressure on," Jake ordered. "Don't let them regroup, hit them everywhere." Captain's fleet pushed through the broken blockade, targeting supply ships and support vessels. Without coordination from their command ship, the fleet was fighting as individuals, not as a unified force. Human pilots exploited this ruthlessly. "Focus fire on their carriers," commanded. "Take out their fighter launch capability." One by one, carriers died under concentrated bombardment. Their fighter wings were stranded in space, running out of fuel and ammunition. Jake watched the tactical display with growing hope. For the first time since the war began, the red zones were turning yellow, then green. Human forces were advancing on every front. Thus, so confident in their superiority, were learning what humans had known throughout their history. Superior technology means nothing without the will to use it effectively. The final push came at the flagship. It was the largest ship in their fleet, a symbol of imperial power. Jake ordered every available ship to attack it. "This is it," Jake said to his command team. "We break them here or they regroup and come back stronger. Take your fleet in, hit them with everything." His fleet, battered but unbroken, made one last charge. They were outnumbered but fighting for their home. Nuclear missiles streaked across space. Rounds tore through armor. Energy weapons burned into shields until they failed. The flagship tried to run, but human fighters blocked its path. Squadron, down to half strength, made suicide runs on the ship's engines. One by one, they destroyed the massive propulsion systems. "Flagship is dead in space," reported. "They're venting atmosphere, the ship is finished." Jake opened a direct channel to the flagship. "This is Commander of Earth. Your war marshal is dead. Your command ship is destroyed. Your fleet is broken. Withdraw now or we will destroy every ship in this system. You came here expecting submission. You found fury instead." 3 months after the retreat, Commander Jake stood among the ruins of New York City. Reconstruction crews worked day and night to rebuild what had been destroyed. The skyline was broken, buildings reduced to skeletal frames, but humanity was recovering. Slowly, painfully, but recovering. The war had cost Earth dearly, 23 million dead, hundreds of cities damaged or destroyed, an entire generation by war, but they had survived, they had won, and the galaxy had taken notice. Ambassador Lisa received a transmission from the Galactic Council, the governing body that oversaw diplomatic relations between hundreds of alien species. For years, humanity had tried to gain membership, to earn a voice in galactic affairs. Each time they had been dismissed as too young, too primitive, not ready. Now the Council was asking humanity to address them. Lisa stood in the temporary United Defense Command Center, reading the invitation. "They want us to explain what happened. They want to know how we defeated the Empire." "The ruled 200 worlds," General Dawson said. "They had never been defeated in 3,000 years. Now a primitive species from an unremarkable planet has shattered their fleet. Of course the Council is curious." "Curious and afraid," Jake added. "They left us to die. None of them helped when they invaded. Now they want to make sure we're not a threat." Lisa nodded. "Then I will go to the Council. I will tell them exactly what happened and why. We have nothing to hide." 2 weeks later, Lisa stood before the Galactic Council on their station orbiting the planet Prime. The council chamber was vast, with representatives from 400 different species arranged in rising tiers. She was the first human to ever address the full council. The council's speaker, a crystalline being named, began. Ambassador of Earth, the council acknowledges your presence. Your species has accomplished what was thought impossible. The empire, which has conquered countless worlds, has retreated from your system in defeat. The council wishes to understand how this occurred. Lisa took a deep breath and began. The council should understand that humanity did not seek this war. We wanted peaceful coexistence with all species. When they arrived, we attempted diplomacy. We offered cooperation, trade, mutual respect. They rejected all of it. She pulled up holographic displays showing the ultimatum. They gave us 72 hours to surrender our entire civilization and become slaves. Not trading partners, not allies. Slaves. They threatened to exterminate our entire species if we refused. Murmurs rippled through the council chamber. Many species had faced similar ultimatums from the and had chosen submission. Some species in this chamber accepted those terms, Lisa continued. We do not judge them for that choice. Every civilization must make its own decisions. But humanity chose differently. We chose to fight, knowing we would probably lose. We chose death over slavery because slavery is a kind of death anyway. The death of dignity, of freedom, of everything that makes life worth living. She showed footage from the war. Human cities burning. Pilots on suicide runs. Civilians taking up arms. Children in shelters. The terrible cost of defiance laid bare before the council. They expected us to break. They expected fear to overcome our resolve. They did not understand that fear can make humans more dangerous, not less. When you threaten everything we love, we do not surrender. We fight back with everything we have. Lisa paused, letting her words sink in. The council wants to know how we defeated the answer is simple. We adapted. We innovated. We took risks. Most importantly, we refused to accept that superior technology meant inevitable defeat. They had better ships, better weapons, better shields, but they did not have better soldiers. They did not have better tactics. They did not have desperation and determination. On the displays, she showed humanity's unconventional tactics. The hidden weapons platforms, the suicide runs, the guerrilla warfare, the willingness to sacrifice ships and lives for strategic advantage. We studied their every battle, found their patterns, exploited their arrogance. They had conquered so many worlds that they stopped learning, stopped adapting. They assumed their way was the only way. We showed them otherwise. Council members shifted in their seats. Some looked impressed, others looked worried. A human civilization willing to fight this hard could be valuable allies or dangerous enemies. Lisa continued, but our victory was not just military, it was moral. We fought not for conquest or revenge, but for the right to remain free. We did not enslave the prisoners we captured. We treated them according to our laws of war with dignity. We did not pursue their retreating fleet to destroy them completely. We let them go because our goal was never to destroy the empire. Our goal was to protect our home. She leaned forward, her voice carrying across the vast chamber. The council sat silent while they threatened us with genocide. No one offered aid. No one spoke against the empire. You were content to let another species fall to slavery rather than risk confronting the yourselves. The accusation hung in the air. Many council members looked away, uncomfortable with the truth. Humanity does not forget that, Lisa said quietly. But we also do not hold grudges. We understand fear. We understand the desire for peace and safety. What we cannot accept is the idea that peace requires submission to bullies. That safety means allowing evil to go unchallenged. She pulled up new displays showing intelligence reports. Since our victory, 17 worlds under control have begun rebellions. They saw that the empire could be beaten. They saw that freedom was possible. Those rebellions are spreading. The empire is facing civil war across its territory. And what does humanity want from this? Asked. Will you lead these rebellions, become conquerors yourselves? No, Lisa answered firmly. We want to help. We will share defensive technology with any species that wants to resist tyranny. We will provide tactical training. We will stand as allies to those fighting for freedom. But we will not conquer. We will not build an empire. Earth has learned from history that empires always fail, always become the very thing they fought against. She gestured to the council chamber. What we want is for this council to stand for something. You claim to represent galactic civilization, but you sat silent while they committed atrocities. You allowed slavery because confronting it was difficult. Humanity is here to say that silence in the face of evil is complicity. If the Council will not defend the weak, then we will. Captain Foster was in the audience wearing his dress uniform. He had been invited to represent Earth's military. Beside him sat Parker, now promoted to captain after her actions during the war. They exchanged glances, proud of their ambassador's words. Back on Earth, Jake watched the broadcast along with billions of others. He saw the council members reacting to Lisa's speech. Some were angry at being called out, others were thoughtful. A few were clearly inspired. "She is magnificent," General Dawson said. "She is telling the most powerful beings in the galaxy that they failed their moral duty." "She is also making enemies," Jake replied. "Some council members profit from the current system. They will not appreciate humanity disrupting it." "Let them be angry. We did not fight the just to bow to a different master." Lisa concluded her address. The Galactic Council can either become what it claims to be, a force for justice and cooperation, or it can continue to be a stage where the powerful prey on the weak. Humanity has made its choice. We will stand with the oppressed. We will defend those who cannot defend themselves. We will fight tyranny wherever we find it, regardless of the cost. She looked directly at the council members. "And if that makes us inconvenient, if that makes us uncomfortable allies, so be it. We would rather be right than comfortable. We would rather fight for justice than profit from injustice. That is the message Earth sends to the galaxy. Freedom is worth fighting for. Dignity is worth dying for. And no species, no matter how powerful, has the right to enslave another." The council chamber erupted in debate. Some species applauded, others shouted objections. The crystalline speaker called for order. When silence finally returned, spoke. "The Council will deliberate on Earth's petition for membership. We will also consider the issues you have raised regarding the Empire and our response to aggression among member species." "That is all we ask," Lisa replied. "Consider your principles. Consider what kind of galaxy you want to live in. Humanity has shown what is possible when you refuse to accept tyranny. We hope others will find the same courage." She left the council chamber with dignity, but once outside, she allowed herself a moment of exhaustion. Captain and Captain joined her. "You told them the truth," said. "Whether they listen or not is their choice." "They will listen," added, "because we proved that standing up to bullies works. The entire galaxy saw what happened. They know the Empire is not invincible anymore." Back on Earth, Admiral Kate was overseeing construction of humanity's new space fleet. The war had taught hard lessons about the need for strong defenses. 50 new warships were under construction, incorporating captured technology with human innovations. "We won the war," Kate explained to visiting reporters, "but the galaxy is still dangerous. We need to be ready for whatever comes next." Jake stood on a hill overlooking the Pacific Ocean, watching the sunset. Engineer Torres joined him, along with Dr. Amy and Lieutenant Chris. They were the survivors, the ones who had fought and lived to see victory. 23 million dead, Jake said quietly. "Sometimes I wonder if the cost was too high." "The alternative was slavery for all 8 billion humans," Amy replied. "Or extinction. We did what we had to do." "And now we get to rebuild," Chris added. "Not just Earth, but our place in the galaxy. We fought for the right to determine our own future. Now we have to prove we deserved that right." Pointed to the sky, where construction scaffolds were visible even in daylight. "We are building faster-than-light ships, real exploration vessels. Within 5 years, humans will be traveling to other stars not as refugees or traders, but as equals." Jake nodded. "The wanted submission. We gave them fire. Now we have to show the galaxy that fire can warm as well as burn, that humanity can be fierce defenders without becoming conquerors." Across the galaxy, the effects of Earth's victory rippled outward. Oppressed species found hope. The Empire, which had seemed eternal, was crumbling from within. The Galactic Council was forced to confront its own failures and complicity. And on Earth, humanity rebuilt. They honored their dead with monuments and memories. They healed their wounded. They taught their children about the war, about the cost of freedom, about the responsibility that came with power. Lisa returned to Earth as a hero. She had carried humanity's message to the stars, and the stars had listened. The Council had not yet granted membership, but they had opened negotiations. More importantly, 6 species had asked Earth for help resisting occupation. We will help them, Lisa told Jake. We will send advisors, share technology, provide support, not to build an empire, but to spread freedom. Jake looked at the woman who had stood before the galaxy's most powerful beings and told them they had failed. You did well, Ambassador. You made them understand what humanity stands for. I just told the truth, Lisa replied. That humans will not bow, that we will fight for what is right even when it is hard, that we believe freedom is universal, not a privilege for the strong. In the years that followed, Earth became known across the galaxy not as conquerors but as defenders. When species faced oppression, they called on humanity. When tyrants threatened the weak, human ships arrived to stand in their defense. The Empire had expected submission. Humanity had answered with fire. And that fire had lit a beacon that would shine across the galaxy, a reminder that freedom was always worth fighting for, that dignity was always worth defending, and that even the mightiest empires could fall when ordinary people refused to bow. Jake eventually retired from military service, but his legacy lived on. The tactics he developed were taught to dozens of species. The courage he demonstrated inspired a generation, and when he looked at the stars at night, he knew that humanity had earned its place among them. Not through conquest or submission, but through defiance, sacrifice, and the unbreakable human spirit that refused to accept that might made right. They had fought for their freedom, and in doing so had shown the galaxy what was possible when people stood together against tyranny. The war was over, but humanity's story among the stars was just beginning. There was a long silence, then a different voice responded. We withdraw. This world has cost us too much. The Empire will remember this defeat. Good, Jake replied coldly. Make sure your Emperor remembers, humanity does not bow to tyrants. The fleet began to retreat, jumping to faster-than-light travel in disorganized groups. Human forces let them go, too exhausted to pursue. The battle was over. Earth had won. He did not realize that every defeat was teaching humanity new lessons about fighting the He did not understand that humans became most dangerous when they had nothing left to lose. The cost of defiance had been terrible, paid in blood and fire. But humanity had survived the worst the Empire could throw at them. Now it was time to show what happened when humans stopped defending and started attacking. They're calling for a ceasefire, Lisa reported. They want to negotiate. Tell them no, Jake said coldly. They gave us 72 hours. They wanted submission or extinction. Now they'll learn what it means to fight humanity. The war was far from over, but the balance had shifted. The Empire had expected submission. Humanity had answered with fire. Through the window, Jake saw the fleet beginning its descent. Thousands of fighters were launching from the carriers. Weapons were charging, ready to rain death on Earth cities. Jake took a deep breath. All units engage at will, make them pay for every inch. The war for Earth had begun.